Right. Hey, Ben. So, a lot of stuff that we deal with our clients and organizations with are culture issues. And something we were talking about today is the idea of making culture concrete. So, when we say making culture concrete, what does that mean?
Well, for me, that means that, first of all, when we think about organizational culture, we have to think about what the visible signs are of organizational culture, right? So those are what we call the artifacts of organizational culture. Those are the words we use to talk with each other, how people are greeted, the rituals we use, the ceremonies we use, what kinds of things are important, what kinds of things aren't important. And to make that concrete in an organization, well, first of all, most organizations have an accidental culture, right, where it's just kind of the culture that they have, and there isn't an intentional driving of a culture that someone actually wants and has thought about. But in the best organizations, they do that. They think about the culture that they want, and they drive to achieve that and to maintain it. And the ways that we can do that is through being very intentional about the ways in which we approach things like who gets rewarded around here, how do we talk to each other, what kinds of behaviors are explicitly and implicitly supported, rewarded, and expected, right? So, one way we've done that in organizations is through going through a process of clearly identifying those behaviors, clearly identifying those values, and then helping leaders in those organizations to communicate what that means and what that looks like throughout the rest of the organization.
You know, the funny thing we talk about, making culture concrete, lots of times that accidental culture becomes, what we call it, the Shawshank Redemption effect. You've been institutionalized. Right. So the accidental culture has been made concrete. What are some of the ways we think about changing that?
I think the first thing is, if you're trying to change your culture, don't think about changing your culture. Think about changing behaviors. Because if you're just thinking, oh, well, if I just come up with some new values and some slogans and maybe a banner that says, is this good for the company, that's going to change my culture, not going to work, right?
Right.
What you need to do as a leader is to think about what are the concrete behaviors that I want to see more of or less of, and I need to drive towards those. And those behaviors should be ones that are connected to cultural values, right? If you want to have a value of being an innovative or a more agile culture, well, then you need to bake that into the ways in which you behave.